Hello everyone, and welcome to Readings in English. This channel is dedicated to helping you improve your English through immersive, engaging stories. Whether you're a beginner, an intermediate learner, or simply someone looking to practice, we believe that storytelling is one of the best ways to learn a language. By listening to stories, you're not only building your vocabulary, but also understanding the rhythm, expressions, and nuances that make English such a rich and versatile language. The English language is truly global. Spoken in over 50 countries and used as a common language for international business, education, and travel, English connects people from diverse cultures and backgrounds. Learning English opens doors to new friendships, careers, and a deeper understanding of the world. And what better way to learn than through the power of stories that inspire and entertain? Today's story takes us on a unique journey. It's a tale of courage, resilience, and the transformative power of sharing our experiences. Through this story, you'll not only get a chance to improve your English, but also explore the themes of healing, hope, and the strength that comes from finding your own voice. So sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Kareem tightened his grip on his worn backpack, stepping through the glass doors of the community center. The sharp scent of disinfectant mixed with the faint aroma of old carpet welcomed him as he entered. Inside, the echo of voices, some hesitant, others lively, resonated through the long hallways, filling the space with a cacophony of languages. Each sound reminded him of his distance from home, and the feeling was bittersweet. He had been in America for just 3 months, yet each day was a delicate balance between hope and an endless ache for everything he'd left behind. As Kareem walked further in, a poster on the wall caught his eye, Writing Workshop for English Learners. Share your story. The bold letters struck him, urging him to read on. Could he actually put his story into words? Could he even write in English? His English skills were basic at best, and the idea of joining a workshop with strangers, sharing parts of himself he'd rather keep hidden, filled him with doubt. Yet something about it intrigued him. He'd always wanted a way to let his story live beyond his memories. With his heart beating faster, Kareem approached the front desk. A middle-aged woman with a warm smile looked up from her paperwork. "Hello," she said kindly, her accent distinctly American. "Can I help you?" "Yes, hello," he replied, struggling to arrange his words. I saw the sign for English class, of course." "We have English classes, and there's also a writing workshop specifically for learners who want to practice their skills. Are you interested?" Kareem paused, glancing at the poster again. The words stared back, urging him to try. "Yes," he finally said. "I want to try." The woman nodded, handing him a pamphlet. "Great. It's taught by Lisa Morton. She's very kind, and her class is wonderful for beginners. We meet on Tuesdays, 10 Thursdays in room 12. Why don't you come by tomorrow?" Tomorrow felt immediate, almost too soon. But Kareem nodded, thanking her as he stepped out of the center, his chest filled with anticipation and a touch of fear. The next day arrived faster than he expected. Kareem's steps were heavy as he walked toward the community center. Room 12 was on the second floor, and he took the stairs slowly, feeling every step as he neared the room. The door was slightly ajar, and he peeked inside, catching a glimpse of a small group seated in a circle, chatting quietly. At the front was a woman with gentle eyes and a welcoming smile. She looked up, noticing him, and her face brightened. "You must be Kareem." "I'm Lisa, come on in," she said warmly, gesturing to an empty chair. Kareem took his seat, glancing around at the others. He saw a young woman who appeared to be from East Asia, an elderly man with a Middle Eastern accent, and a few others who seemed just as nervous as he was. Lisa began by introducing herself and the purpose of the workshop. Writing is a powerful way to understand your own thoughts and share them with others, she said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. This class is a safe place for all of us to explore our stories, our lives, and practice English together. The other members introduced themselves, their voices carrying a mixture of vulnerability and courage. When it was Kareem's turn, he hesitated, wondering how much he should share. "My name is Kareem," he said quietly. I am from Syria. I came here 3 months ago." He paused, his gaze fixed on the floor, unsure if he could say more. Lisa nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "Welcome, Kareem. We're glad to have you here." For the remainder of the session, Lisa explained the structure of the workshop. Each week, they would have a new writing prompt to encourage them to explore personal memories and express themselves. She handed out a paper with the first prompt, asterisk, asterisk, write about a place that is meaningful to you, asterisk, asterisk. Kareem stared at the words, feeling a wave of homesickness wash over him. He thought of Damascus, the bustling streets and vibrant markets, and the quiet rooftop of his childhood home where he had spent many evenings watching the stars. His heart ached, and he realized that writing about his past might be harder than he had anticipated. As he left the center that night, Kareem felt the weight of the prompt pressing down on him. He couldn't sleep, his mind lingering on memories of his family, his neighborhood, the life he'd left behind. When he finally picked up a pen, the words came slowly, haltingly, as if his memories were resisting the transition onto paper. The next session came, and Kareem arrived with a nervous anticipation. When he walked into the room, Lisa greeted him warmly. He took his seat, clutching his notebook, uncertain if he'd have the courage to read aloud. Lisa asked if anyone wanted to share their writing, and a few classmates volunteered, their stories filled with glimpses of home and the lives they once had. When it was Kareem's turn, he hesitated but finally began reading. "My name is Kareem," he started, his voice shaky. "I am from Syria. A place special to me is the rooftop of my home. I would go there at night to see the stars, to feel peace His words were halting, the sentences broken, but each word carried the weight of longing and loss. When he finished, the room was silent. Lisa's eyes shone with empathy. "Thank you, Kareem." That was beautiful. As the workshop progressed, Lisa introduced the concept of free writing, allowing thoughts to flow without restriction or self-judgment. She encouraged them to put their feelings on paper, to let the words express whatever needed to be said. This practice was difficult for Kareem. His heart felt heavy with things left unspoken, memories of family, friends, and all he had lost. Despite the difficulty, something inside him began to shift. Each time he wrote, each word he managed to put down felt like a small victory. As the weeks went by, his English began to improve, and he found himself gradually opening up. The workshop became more than a class, it became a sanctuary. Kareem's friendship with Omar also began to grow. Omar had been in the U.S. for a few years longer, and although he had experienced the pain of displacement, he approached life differently. Omar often advised Kareem to focus on the future, warning him that dwelling on painful memories could only lead to more suffering. "You have to be strong here," Omar would say. Surviving is about looking forward, not back. But Kareem couldn't ignore his past as easily. To him, it felt like a betrayal to leave those memories untouched. One evening after the workshop, Lisa pulled Kareem aside. "I can see how much writing means to you," she said gently. "It's brave to confront these memories. You're finding your voice, Kareem." Her words resonated deeply with him. For the first time, he felt that sharing his story might not only help him heal, but might help others as well. Leaving the center that night, he felt a flicker of hope, something he hadn't felt since arriving in this new country. Over the following weeks, Kareem found himself drawn deeper into his memories each time he sat down to write. The workshop prompts varied. Describe a family tradition. Write about a memorable journey, each one unearthing parts of his past he'd buried. He filled pages with fragmented sentences and simple words, hoping that his limited English could capture the feelings hidden within his memories. Each word was like peeling back a layer of himself, revealing pain, joy, and a longing for the life he'd left behind. One evening, Lisa encouraged the group to dig deeper. "Writing isn't always easy," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Sometimes the hardest memories are the ones that need the most attention." This next prompt will challenge you, but remember, we're all here to support each other. The prompt was deceptively simple. Asterisk, asterisk, write about a person who changed your life. Asterisk, asterisk, Kareem's thoughts drifted immediately to his mother. She had always been his anchor, a calm presence during his childhood and a source of strength during the chaos that followed. She'd stayed in Syria, her refusal to leave stemming from a devotion to the family home, even as danger loomed closer. That night he stayed up late, pen moving slowly over the page as he struggled to find the words to capture her spirit. She was strong, kind, he wrote. She taught me to see beauty in small things. He remembered how she used to hum as she cooked, the scent of spices filling their home. Writing it down felt like reaching across time and space to touch her once more. At the next workshop, Lisa asked if anyone wanted to share their piece. Karim's pulse quickened. Reading about his mother in English felt raw, as though exposing a delicate part of himself to an audience he barely knew. But he'd come this far, and he sensed that his story mattered. When his turn came, he unfolded the paper, his hands trembling slightly. His classmates leaned in, their faces attentive. My mother, she stayed in Syria, he began, his voice quiet. She is a strong woman. She taught me everything. About kindness, about strength. His voice wavered as he described her, each word carrying the weight of homesickness and admiration. When he finished, a silence hung in the room, the air thick with unspoken understanding. Lisa's voice broke the quiet. "Thank you, Karim." That was beautiful. Around him, a few classmates nodded, offering small smiles. For the first time, Karim felt the catharsis of sharing his past, as though letting his memories breathe and a new language granted them life again. After the session, Lisa approached him. "Karim, I want you to know how powerful your words are," she said. "You're giving your story a voice, and that takes courage." Her encouragement filled him with a strange mix of relief and responsibility. He realized that by sharing his story, he wasn't just releasing his own pain, he was offering others a glimpse into a life they couldn't otherwise understand. The thought of it gave him purpose. Over the next few days, Karim began writing more, filling his notebook with pieces of his life in Syria. Each entry took him deeper into his memories, and he found comfort in knowing that his past was no longer locked away. Through each story, he felt closer to his mother, his friends, his country. It was as though, in giving them words, he was bringing them with him on his journey. Karim's growing attachment to the workshop led him to spend more time with Lisa outside of class. One afternoon, after a particularly emotional session, she invited him for coffee at a nearby cafe. They sat by the window, watching pedestrians pass by in a blur of colors and languages. As they talked, Karim opened up about his life in Syria, the challenges of adjusting to a new country, and the struggle of learning English. Lisa listened intently, her gaze unwavering, a rare empathy in her expression. After a pause, she began to share her own story. "I lost my brother a few years ago," she said softly. Her voice carried a weight Karim recognized all too well, the kind of sorrow that lingered long after the loss. "He was my best friend, and after he passed, I felt adrift. That's when I started writing. It became a way for me to remember him, to keep him alive in some way." Her words resonated deeply with Karim. They were both haunted by memories of loved ones, both seeking solace in words. Though their experiences were vastly different, the emotions felt strikingly similar. For the first time, Karim felt a sense of kinship in this foreign land, a realization that pain and healing transcended borders. Their bond grew over shared cups of coffee and quiet conversations, each one peeling back layers of their lives. Lisa encouraged him to continue writing, to use his story as a bridge between his past and present. "Every story you share brings you closer to peace," she said, her voice firm with conviction. Back at the workshop, Kareem felt the change in himself. His English was improving, and with each word he felt more confident. But not everyone understood his need to share his past. Omar, his closest friend in the city, expressed concern. One evening, Kareem met Omar after class. They walked through the dimly lit streets, discussing their struggles with adapting to American life. Omar had been in the U.S. for a few years longer, but he had a different perspective on their journey. "Kareem, my friend, I understand why you want to write," Omar said carefully. "But I worry you're digging too deep into painful memories. Dwelling on the past can keep you trapped. We're here now, in America. We should focus on building a future, not reliving the past." Kareem took in Omar's words, his expression somber. He knew Omar spoke out of concern, yet Kareem felt that his story needed to be told. For him, writing was a way to honor what he'd lost, to keep his past alive in a world where it might otherwise be forgotten. "I understand," Omar, Kareem replied, his voice steady. "But I need to share my story. It helps me remember who I am. I can't pretend my past doesn't exist." Omar nodded, though a shadow of doubt lingered in his eyes. Kareem sensed a rift growing between them, a divide forged by their different ways of coping. Yet he knew that sharing his story was something he couldn't abandon. That night, as Kareem sat in his small apartment, he reflected on Lisa's words and Omar's warning. He realized that, for him, the act of writing was more than an exercise in language. It was a way to reclaim his life, to give voice to the memories that defined him. The following week, Lisa introduced a new exercise to the group. "Today, we're going to practice reading our writing out loud," she announced with a gentle smile. The room grew quiet, and Kareem's heart began to pound. He had always struggled with speaking English, and the thought of reading his deeply personal writing to the group filled him with dread. Lisa explained that the purpose of the exercise was to help everyone build confidence and practice pronunciation. When you hear your own voice, it's easier to connect with the words. And remember, this is a safe space. We're all here to support each other. Kareem watched as a few of his classmates took turns reading, their voices shaky at first, but gaining strength with each sentence. He admired their courage, feeling a mixture of anxiety and inspiration. When it was finally his turn, he hesitated, clutching his notebook tightly, and looked up to meet Lisa's encouraging gaze. Taking a deep breath, Kareem opened his notebook and began to read. His voice was low and unsteady, each word a tentative step into vulnerability. "My mother, she stayed in Syria. She is a strong woman. She taught me kindness and to see beauty in small things. The words felt foreign on his tongue, his accent thick, but he forced himself to continue. Describing his mother brought her vividly to mind, and the ache of missing her grew stronger with each sentence. As he finished, a heavy silence filled the room, and then his classmates began to clap softly. Lisa smiled, her expression one of quiet pride that was beautiful. Kareem, thank you for sharing. A strange sense of relief washed over him, as though a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had been lifted. For the first time, he felt a small glimmer of pride in his voice, realizing that his words, though simple, held power. This act of sharing, of bringing his memories into the light, felt transformative. That night, Kareem walked home with a renewed sense of purpose. He replayed the sound of his own voice in his head, a reminder that he was not alone in his memories, that his story could resonate with others. The courage he had felt in that moment lingered, sparking a desire to keep sharing, to see where this journey would take him. Over the next few sessions, Lisa introduced a technique called free writing, encouraging the class to write without self-judgment, letting the words flow without worrying about grammar or structure. The goal is to let your thoughts come through, she explained. Don't overthink. Just let your pen move across the page. At first, free writing was challenging for Kareem. His thoughts often tangled in memories he hadn't revisited in years, and he struggled to find the right words in English. But as he persisted, something remarkable began to happen. Writing became less of a task and more of a release, a way to capture fleeting images of his past, of the family gatherings, the laughter, and even the quiet moments he missed so dearly. As he practiced, Kareem noticed his English improving. The act of writing without barriers helped him gain confidence in his vocabulary, and he felt himself growing closer to the language, as though English was becoming a part of him. One evening, as he sat at his desk, pen in hand, he found himself writing about the last time he saw his mother. The memory flooded his mind, vivid and sharp, her face lined with worry as she urged him to leave, her hands gripping his shoulders, her voice barely a whisper. She told him to find safety. The words flowed onto the paper, capturing the bittersweet mixture of love and loss that filled that moment. Kareem's growth in the workshop didn't go unnoticed. His classmates began to open up more to him, and even outside of class, he found himself carrying pieces of their stories, small connections that reminded him of his shared humanity with each of them. But not everyone understood his journey, and his friendship with Omar, once a source of comfort, started to strain. One evening, Kareem and Omar met at a small cafe near their neighborhood. Omar watched him closely, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. "You've changed, Kareem," he said, sipping his tea. "You talk about the past so much now, like it's the only thing that matters." Kareem looked down, feeling the tension between them. "It's not that simple, Omar. Writing about my past It helps me remember who I am, where I come from. It's healing." Omar shook his head. "But reliving those memories, it's dangerous. We left Syria for a reason, Kareem. You have to let go if you want to build a life here." Kareem felt a pang of defensiveness. He knew Omar was speaking out of concern, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his friend didn't understand. For Kareem, writing was a way of honoring his experiences, a way of keeping his past alive in a world that felt foreign and unfamiliar. "I understand what you're saying, Omar," he replied, his voice steady, "but I can't pretend that my past doesn't exist. Writing, it's my way of making peace with it." Omar sighed, a look of disappointment crossing his face. "Just be careful, Kareem. Sometimes holding on to the past can hold you back from the future." With that, Omar stood, leaving Kareem alone with his thoughts. As he walked home, Kareem felt a mix of sadness and resolve. His friendship with Omar had been a lifeline in this strange country, but he couldn't ignore the pull of his memories. Writing wasn't just a means of survival, it was a path toward reclaiming himself. That night, Kareem sat down at his desk and opened his notebook. He wrote about the conversation with Omar, capturing the sense of isolation he felt, the delicate balance between honoring his past and embracing the present. Each word felt like a step toward understanding, a way of grounding himself amid the uncertainty. Lisa's words echoed in his mind. Asterisk, asterisk, writing helps you find your voice. Asterisk, asterisk, he realized that this was his journey alone, one that would require him to walk the fine line between memory and healing, regardless of whether others understood. The next day, he returned to the workshop with a new sense of clarity. Lisa noticed the change in his expression and smiled softly, sensing his determination. Kareem knew that he had made a choice, a commitment to himself and to his story. For him, this was more than a workshop. It was a testament to his resilience, a way of honoring everything he had endured and lost. As the session ended, Lisa handed out a new prompt. Describe a journey that changed your life. Kareem felt a surge of inspiration, his pen poised over the page. He began writing, his words flowing with newfound purpose, each sentence a testament to the journey he had embarked on, both within and beyond the workshop. Kareem poured himself into the next prompt. Describe a journey that changed your life. Sitting at his small desk, he tried to capture the journey that had transformed him, leaving Syria, saying goodbye to everything familiar, and setting out into an unknown future. The words flowed faster than before, and with each sentence he felt himself drawn deeper into memories that, until now, he had tried to keep locked away. He wrote about the day he left, the sound of distant sirens, and his mother's voice urging him to go, her final embrace filled with a desperation he would never forget. He described the uncertainty of traveling through unfamiliar lands, the fear he'd felt crossing borders, and the moments of kindness he'd encountered along the way. In writing about this journey, Kareem felt both vulnerable and liberated, as though finally confronting these memories allowed him to breathe again. At the next workshop, he brought his notebook with pages filled from edge to edge, a testament to the experiences he could no longer keep hidden. When it was his turn to share, he read his story aloud, each word a fragile piece of his heart exposed. His classmates listened with rapt attention, their expressions shifting from sorrow to admiration. Kareem felt their empathy, and in that moment he understood the healing power of sharing his story. When he finished, Lisa's eyes shone with admiration. "Kareem, that was powerful," she said softly. "Thank you for letting us in." He met her gaze, feeling a deep gratitude for her encouragement and the safe space she had created for him and others to be vulnerable. After class, Kareem stayed behind to talk with Lisa. "Writing is helping me," he confessed, his voice filled with newfound confidence. "I feel like I am discovering parts of myself I didn't know were there." Lisa nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's the beauty of storytelling, Kareem. It's a way to uncover truths we might not see otherwise." She paused, her voice softening. "You're not just learning English here. You're finding a way to heal." Encouraged by Lisa's words, Kareem returned home that evening with a renewed commitment to his writing. He began spending hours each night filling pages with stories of his childhood, his family, and the moments that defined his life in Syria. He realized that these memories were not only part of his past, but were integral to understanding who he was in the present. Over time, Kareem's English improved noticeably. His sentences grew more fluid, his vocabulary expanded, and with each new word, he felt a little closer to himself. Writing had become more than an assignment. It was a lifeline, a means of giving voice to experiences he could no longer keep buried. One evening, as he was writing, a particularly vivid memory surfaced. The last dinner he'd shared with his family. He could still recall the clinking of glasses, the aroma of his mother's cooking, and the laughter that filled the room despite the looming uncertainty. Capturing it on paper brought a mixture of joy and sorrow, as though he were reliving that night, cherishing each detail before it faded once more. The workshop became more than just a place to write. It became a sanctuary, a small corner of the world where Kareem felt truly understood. One afternoon, Lisa announced that a local newspaper had expressed interest in writing an article about the workshop and the stories of resilience and hope it fostered among immigrants. The news was met with excitement and a bit of trepidation. "They'd like to interview a few of you to share how writing has impacted your lives," Lisa explained, her gaze sweeping over the group. "It's entirely voluntary, but if anyone feels comfortable sharing, please let me know." Kareem felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Part of him wanted to share his story publicly to show others what refugees like him had endured, but he also feared the consequences. Omar's words echoed in his mind, warning him about the dangers of opening up too much. Despite his hesitation, Kareem decided that this was an opportunity to help others understand the immigrant experience and to honor the journey he had made. A week later, the article was published, featuring Kareem's story alongside those of his classmates. He was nervous about how his words might be received, but the response was overwhelmingly positive. The community center was filled with messages of support, and several people approached him, thanking him for his courage and honesty. However, not everyone saw it that way. Later that week, Kareem received a call from Omar. His tone was sharp, laced with disappointment. "Kareem, I saw the article," he began, his voice tense. "Why did you do it?" "You know we have to be careful. Sharing too much can bring unwanted attention. It's dangerous." Kareem felt a pang of guilt, but he also felt a newfound sense of conviction. "Omar, I understand your concern, but I believe our stories matter. People need to know what we went through. Writing, it's helping me heal, and maybe it can help others understand us better." Omar sighed, a hint of frustration in his voice. "Just remember, not everyone will see it that way. Some people might use it against you. I don't want you to get hurt." He hung up, leaving Kareem feeling torn between his desire to honor his story and the caution his friend urged. The tension weighed heavily on Kareem as he returned to the community center. For the first time, he questioned whether he had made the right decision. Sharing his story with the world had felt empowering, but now he feared that he might have jeopardized his safety. Yet, as he stepped into the workshop, he saw the familiar faces of his classmates, each one representing a story of resilience and hope. Their smiles and nods of encouragement reminded him why he had chosen to share his truth. Lisa noticed his unease and approached him. "Are you all right, Kareem?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. He hesitated before replying. "I am a little worried. My friend thinks sharing my story was a mistake. He thinks it might bring trouble." Lisa placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Only you can decide what's right for you, Kareem. But remember, telling our stories is a powerful act. It helps others see beyond stereotypes, beyond fear. Your story matters, and if it's helping you heal, then perhaps it's worth the risk." Her words rekindled the spark of courage within him. Kareem realized that while there might be risks, the act of sharing his story was essential for his healing. He nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Thank you, Lisa. I needed to hear that." As the session began, Lisa introduced the prompt for the week. "Write about a memory that you cherish." Kareem felt a familiar wave of nostalgia and sadness, but this time he didn't resist. He picked up his pen, ready to continue his journey of healing, knowing that every word he wrote was a step closer to peace. Over the following weeks, the anticipation in the workshop grew as Lisa announced that the group would participate in a public reading event at the community center. Each member was invited to select a piece to read aloud, something meaningful that would give the audience insight into their lives and journeys. Kareem felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Sharing his story with his classmates had been a vulnerable experience, but reading it to an unfamiliar audience was a step beyond anything he had imagined. Lisa sensed his hesitation. After one of their sessions, she pulled him aside. "Kareem, I know this is a big step," she said, her voice filled with understanding, "but I think your story will resonate deeply with people. You have a gift for expressing powerful emotions and sharing that could be transformative for you and for those who hear it." Her words stayed with him. Kareem knew she was right. Writing had already brought him a sense of healing, and reading his story aloud felt like the next natural step. Over the next few days, he selected a passage that held particular significance, a piece he'd written about his mother and the final moments they had shared before he left Syria. He spent hours practicing, reading it aloud in his small apartment, his voice steady with each attempt. The evening of the event arrived, and Kareem dressed carefully, his hands trembling as he buttoned his shirt. The community center was filled with people, both familiar faces and strangers who had come to listen. Kareem spotted Lisa in the front row, offering him an encouraging smile, and his classmate sat beside her, their expressions supportive and warm. When it was his turn, Kareem stepped onto the small stage, clutching his notebook tightly. The room fell silent, and he took a deep breath, feeling his pulse quicken. As he opened his notebook, he glanced up at the audience, and a sense of calm washed over him. This was his story, and he was ready to share it. He began to read, his voice soft but unwavering. "My mother, she stayed in Syria. I remember the last night we spent together, her hands holding mine as she told me to go to find safety. She was strong, stronger than anyone I have ever known." His words flowed, each sentence filled with the weight of his memories and emotions. As he spoke, he saw a few members of the audience wipe away tears, their empathy reaching across the room. When he finished, a profound silence hung in the air, followed by applause that seemed to envelop him. Kareem felt an overwhelming sense of relief and pride, as though he had finally found a way to honor his past while stepping into his future. Lisa approached him afterward, her eyes filled with pride. "That was incredible, Kareem. Thank you for sharing that with us," she said softly. He smiled, a newfound confidence in his expression. For the first time, he felt the healing power of his own voice. After the reading, Kareem was approached by several audience members who wanted to thank him for his courage and honesty. Each conversation left him with a feeling of connection, as though his story had created bridges between him and others who might never fully understand his experiences, but now saw him in a new light. For Kareem, this was more than an accomplishment. It was a milestone in his journey of healing. The days that followed were filled with a quiet sense of fulfillment. Kareem felt lighter, as though he had finally released a part of himself that had been hidden for too long. Writing had become more than just an exercise in language. It had become a means of rediscovering his own resilience, of finding peace with the past. One afternoon, as he was leaving the community center, Omar approached him. His expression was cautious, a mixture of respect and reservation. "I heard about your reading," Omar said, his voice measured. "People say it was moving." Kareem met his gaze, sensing the lingering tension between them, but also a softening in Omar's stance. "It was important for me, Omar," he replied gently, sharing my story. "It helped me find a sense of peace." Omar nodded, his expression conflicted. "I still worrying about you, Kareem. But maybe there's more strength in facing the past than I thought." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, and Kareem felt grateful for the progress they had made. With the success of the reading event behind him, Kareem continued attending the workshop, each session bringing new insights and a deeper sense of belonging. He had grown close to his classmates, each of them a unique thread in the tapestry of his journey, and together they created a support system that transcended language and culture. One day, as the workshop was winding down, Lisa announced a new opportunity. The community center starting a program where members of the workshop can volunteer as writing mentors for newcomers. "If anyone's interested, please let me know." Kareem felt a surge of inspiration. The thought of helping others find their voice through writing was compelling, and he realized that he wanted to give back, to help others in the way that Lisa had helped him. At the end of the session, he approached her, a look of determination in his eyes. "I'd like to volunteer," he said. "Writing has changed my life, and if I can help someone else find that same strength, I want to do it." Lisa smiled, her expression one of pride and understanding. "I think you'll be wonderful at it, Kareem. Your story and your courage will inspire others." The following week, Kareem began working with a small group of new immigrants, each of them hesitant and uncertain, just as he had been when he first joined the workshop. He guided them through writing exercises, encouraging them to let their words flow freely, to embrace their stories with the same openness he had learned it to find within himself. Watching their growth reminded him of his own journey, of the fear and determination that had brought him to this point. As he continued to mentor, Kareem noticed subtle changes in himself. His English improved with each passing day, his confidence grew, and he felt a deeper sense of purpose in his life. Writing had become a way for him to bridge the gap between his past and his present, a means of honoring the experiences that had shaped him while building a future filled with hope. Months passed, and Kareem's work at the community center expanded. He began collaborating with Lisa on new projects, helping her organize events and encourage more refugees to share their stories. Together, they created a safe haven where people could express their emotions, find solace in their words, and connect with others who understood their journey. One evening, as Kareem walked home from the center, he reflected on how far he had come. The man who had first entered that building months ago, uncertain and burdened by memories, was no longer the same. He had found strength within himself he hadn't known existed, and he had forged connections that transcended borders, languages, and cultures. As he reached his apartment, he paused, looking up at the stars. For the first time, he felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet assurance that his journey had been worth every struggle. His story, once a painful reminder of everything he had lost, had become a beacon of hope, guiding him toward a future he was finally ready to embrace.